Hunter McIntyre, the Sheriff versus the Raccoon, last chance qualifier issues, and responding to Andrew Hiller. Because that's just what you do if Andrew Hiller brings up your name. You make a responding to video. People just, they search Hiller and you get extra views. It's just what you do. I am not beneath looking for views. Not only am I not beneath it, I am above it. I am not beneath it. I'm doing it right now. Probably put his face on the front cover to try to get more clicks and views, didn't you? Pathetic. Might as well make it a 6-part series, responding to Hiller part 1 through 6. They already say you're riding his coattails, swagger jacking his style. You're a cheap knockoff, an imitation.
I know who I am!
Timu Hiller.
I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude.
Walmart Hiller.
Or are you a dude who has no idea what dude he is and claims to know what dude he is?
Mentally handicapped Hiller. Hiller if he hit the crack pipe one too many times. All right, chill out, dude. Sheesh. I gotta get it from you, too? Just embrace it. Better to have Hiller's scraps than Mike Halpin's or Brian Friend's. Not scraps. So it's not exactly an old debate. It is an old debate, but applied to a current situation.
You can't for months on end go on telling everybody that James Sprague is the fittest person on earth while they remove 2 events from the CrossFit Games.
James Sprague is the fittest on earth this year.
And then also say that the wrong people qualified out of the Northern California Classic.
Wow, now that Hiller replayed that, 65,000 people have seen you sucking up to daddy in your no-rep shirt and 480p DVD quality with a $10 Amazon lavalier microphone and cut-rate smooth jazz playing in the background. Congratulations. Frick. I want a legal separation. Anyway, not to keep you at the edge of your seat about the Hiller content, but first we've got the Sheriff versus the Raccoon.
Don't call me a raccoon!
And yes, I'm talking about Hyrox.
I'm a Hyroxer, and I'm really in shape. Just don't ask me to lift any of those heavy weights.
So over the weekend, they had the World Championships or whatever it's called in Chicago, where you've got the singles, which is just like in CrossFit, the big thing. Then you've got some team stuff. You've got a relay where you represent your country, and you've got doubles, which is, this is kind of like the teams in CrossFit. It still matters, but it certainly does not matter as much as the Elite 15, which took place, I believe, on Friday night. In that, Hunter was actually just seconds away from hawking down some skinny little German guy to steal a championship back again, his 4th, I think it would have been, at age 36, and he just missed it.
Can Tim Venus bring it home or not? He's got to dig real deep now. He is 8 barbells ahead. He's taken another break. He cannot afford another rest. He needs to push through. Tim Venus, another rest. Oh my word, he is at the limit. Look at this race from Hunter McIntyre. Tim Venus, he's got to focus. He does not afford any no-reps. He's taken another one. Come on, Tim Venus. Don't make it this close. The man from Germany. He brings it home. Take the title of the world.
Why are you covering Hyrox anyway? We make fun of Hyrox. But aside from that, which was actually very exciting, during the relay in which Hunter was racing for Team USA with a guy called the Hybrid Raccoon, his name's Dylan.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, because this is something we've never seen before. Oh, wow.
Guy looks like Jack Skellington.
And I, Jack, the Pumpkin King.
Tell him to eat some freaking protein. Do some squats. He beat Hunter in a previous race, not the championship, but a previous race earlier this year, maybe 6 months ago, 4 months ago, not sure. He actually had some things to say about Hunter, and the reason why he had things to say is because Hunter actually rammed somebody off the course.
No high aspirations for the win.
Oh, did you see that in the background?
What happened to Jeremy there?
Hunter was sort of locked up with somebody, I think, from Ireland who was running with some pretty high elbows, kind of swerving in and out and cut in front of Hunter. And Hunter just gave him the old forearm shiver, knocked him off the course, and that was that. About time someone in Hyrox had some balls to make up for their balls. Their wall balls.
When he does wall balls, he does them on a tree.
They posted a picture together in the morning saying, hey, it was all good. But then Hyrox came out and said that Team USA was disqualified. They had finished first. They would now lose that relay championship. They would now lose the $12,000 that was to be shared among them. And that is why the hybrid raccoon was upset.
I'm sorry. I took it too far. I meant trash panda.
In which he posted this on Instagram.
Sucks that, the people on the team that are going to be the most affected by it is not going to be the person who did it, which blows. Sucks to not have a teammate that can keep their head when it comes to that kind of stuff in a race, but that's what happened. We had the discussion last night, had the discussion this morning, and ultimately if Hyrox wants to be a legitimate sport, they can't have a golden boy who can get away doing that kind of stuff. While he took 12 grand from his teammates by doing that, and we talked and I told him, dude, I'm sure there's a reason you did it, but it was stupid. Congrats to Team Australia. I'll give you that one. You guys, y'all have it. Hopefully get a chance to race again next year with less theatrics all around, maybe.
A lot of people thought it was absolutely insane to throw a teammate under the bus, myself included. It seems like there's maybe some sort of generational gap here, because I noticed that a lot of the people who just couldn't fathom this were around my age, maybe a little bit younger, maybe a little bit earlier. And where I come from, where you play team sports, whether you like somebody or not, that stuff stays in-house. You do not go air it out. It came out later. I think Savon pressed it a little bit, and kudos for Dylan for calling into the Savon podcast after Hunter appeared very briefly, and Savon actually pressed him really hard. And it kind of came out that they don't like each other. It's very obvious they don't. He tried to say we're cordial and this and that, but clearly this goes back a ways.
I think it sounds like, and I'm reading into it, that you have a little bit of an axe to grind with him, and you saw this as an opportunity to take a jab at him.
I don't even know if it's that. I mean, if the axe was there, the axe was just handed to me by what happened last night. He's a competitor. I compete against him.
You still don't have to be on a team with him. Doesn't matter how you qualified, if you were selected or not, or if you just qualified the top 4 people. I don't know how it works. You're on a team. You know who that teammate is ahead of time, and you are going to share with them, whether it's in victory or whether it's disqualification, whatever goes down, whatever shadiness or whatever glory, you share in that in some small way. So you have to make a decision who you're going to marry, where you're going to work, who you're going to be friends with, because relationships are shared to some extent always. I will admit that I have a little bit of bias already, because I feel like I've already had some interactions with Dylan, the hybrid raccoon, in which he's responded emotionally. And this is kind of a lesson in how things so small, such as humor or being able to make fun of yourself, both of them responded to one of my memes, the same meme, in 2 very different ways. Dylan said, I'm going to pull it up now, I don't remember exactly, but basically, rah, 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 you're calling Hyrox gay, and you're just trying to be cool. Oh, look at me. I'm so cool. I'm going to post this to get validation, have people like me. I don't know. I didn't really read the whole thing. I think to some extent, we are always posting stuff for likes and views. So in that sense, he's right. But the whole thing about, it's just weird. Like, who cares, dude? It's a meme. Whereas Hunter had this to say.
Dude, keeping it real, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to give you a shout out, dude. I actually got one of your videos. Homeboy, I never really believed in you, but then I saw this video and I laughed pretty hard. This is basically keeping it real, talking about the difference between Hyrox athletes and CrossFit athletes. And this is great. I just love the fact that you had this outfit, and I kind of have similar outfits in my house.
I still think the best part about that whole thing is never really believed in you. I mean, dude, Hunter's just so like, I'm watching these races, the last 2 races, literally because of Hunter, to watch Hunter. And that's what he does for the sport. And that matters because there's nobody out there right now doing that for the sport. So yes, I have bias, but I still think it's completely out of bounds for the hybrid raccoon to go out and throw a teammate under the bus. Again, though, he did come back and face the criticism head on. He did respond to comments. He didn't run away from it. And he even had a little bit of a sense of humor, including in interactions with me at one point. And so he has gone up a notch in my book for the way that he handled the situation, even though I do not agree with his video. All right, last chance qualifier. It may only send 1 person versus 2. Nonetheless, it is still the same as all the other qualifying events. So the last chance qualifier is done by Hustle Up. I heard that Mayhem did the workouts. I think it might have been on Savan or somewhere else, or oversaw the workouts or whatnot. And you see rope climbs and GHDs and a few things that give that indication as well. The workouts look really good. They are semifinals level workouts, and you have to do all 5 of them in like basically a 2-day span. I don't mind that it's not on the CrossFit leaderboard and that it's on an app that you have to go through 5 minutes of signing up for. The Hustle Up app, go ahead and get that money, CrossFit. Get that money from those sponsors. I'm all for it. But there are some things that I really don't like. Now, I don't even really mind that there's a bunch of people who aren't signed up for this. I get it. People are beat up. Aline Wurz is at the top of the women's leaderboard. She is from Switzerland. Who are you? It's okay if you came out of nowhere and suddenly started crushing it. Maybe you were injured. Maybe something just clicked and you got in the zone.
With a bouncer.
But the first thing that a lot of us think, especially after the whole is that if we don't know who you are and you're shooting up the top of the leaderboard out of nowhere, we want to see some video. But we can't see her video because despite having every other games qualifying event in the public eye, whether it be that it was in person or whether it be that it required video, for whatever reason, this one doesn't. This does not require video, and that's completely inconsistent. Why would you suddenly drop that requirement? It doesn't make any sense. It's just another thing that's very obvious for people to critique and for HQ to look like they don't know what they're doing. And if there isn't public video, who's reviewing the video? We don't even really know. On the Savan podcast, somebody commented that HQ was the one reviewing the video. I don't know why it's zooming in and out of my face right now, but I guess you guys are just going to have to deal with it because I can't get it to stop.
The fortress is taken. It is over.
So we suddenly don't have video, and we don't know how the videos are reviewed or what the standards are. And in addition to that, the scoring system is completely messed up. Something that Brian Spin brought up that was also discussed on the Savan podcast is that the scoring weighting is all jacked up because they've got it like the NorCal scoring, where if you take first in an event, you get 1 point. If you take 10th, you get 10 points. But here's the thing. If you come in last in an event early on, like Kowski, if he comes in last early on, he would get a score of 20, which would shoot his score up, and you want to be lower. But if a bunch of people drop out, say 20 are in total and 10 drop out, don't enter their scores, don't do the final workouts because they're so far out of it, which is a real possibility. Now, if you come in last on an event, you only get 10th because the people dropped out would be 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, and so on. So early on, since we've had to enter the score at the midway point, if you absolutely are terrible in an event and come in last, you get 20 points added to your total, whereas later you may only get 10 points just because the last place finishes would be weighted differently.
First 3 workouts were each worth 5% more than the final 2 workouts.
9 athletes entered the score for the first 3 workouts. 7 athletes entered the score for the last 2 workouts. 9 plus 9 plus 9 plus 7 is 41. So 9 divided by 41 is the value that the first 3 workouts had, which is 22%. And then 7 divided by 41 is the value that the last 2 workouts hold, which is 17%.
and it creates the potential for a real problem. So I don't know why they're using this scoring system. No videos, bad scoring system. You're just asking for issues.
Our pets' heads are falling off!
Do normal scoring, require public videos. It's really easy. Okay, lastly on Andrew Hiller and responding to him at the end of his NorCal video.
One more note. Watch Tipping It Real's 25-minute video on the same topic.
The wrong two people are going to the CrossFit Games because we don't know who should be going to the CrossFit Games.
You can't for months on end go on telling everybody that James Sprague is the fittest person on earth while they remove 2 events from the CrossFit Games.
James Sprague is the fittest on earth this year.
And then also say that the wrong people qualified out of the Northern California Classic. Do I agree that the 2 spot might be different, that Carolyn might be there instead of Heidi Canio, and that Nate Ackerman may have been there instead of Spencer Panchik? Yeah, that's probable. Possible, potentially, plausible. But the people who are sitting in second place in this event are very much the qualifiers for the CrossFit Games to the same extent that James Sprague is the fittest on earth.
So in one sense, I agree with Hiller. Maybe you can't call James Sprague the fittest on earth. That is his title because we've determined ahead of time that whoever does the test,
it's NorCal.
No matter what the extenuating circumstances are, is the fittest on earth.
And that's all I have to say about that. And Hiller, out.
So a couple things here. I responded to him that I think there's nuance, and this situation, essentially what I was thinking, is different for A, B, C, D, whatever reason. But as you're thinking through that in the moment, maybe it's just bias. And I actually think he is right and wrong because I made several arguments, and I think that the logic that he uses, taking my logic, saying James is the fittest on earth despite issues with the games, when he takes that and applies it to my logic of saying NorCal might be sending the wrong people to the games, he is right. In one instance, I don't think he's right in the other. Now, we've always differed, Andrew and I, on several things regarding the CrossFit Games. One of them is the definition of the fittest. I've noticed that Andrew takes it more literally, like, no, this person actually literally is the fittest on earth, whereas I would say it's just a title. However, it is the closest thing anywhere to the fittest on earth, and sometimes we really might have the fittest person on earth. Now, I think those cases would be cases like Tia, Rich, Matt. When people win multiple times, it's very clear that they absolutely are the best. I think we might actually have the fittest person on earth. And then there's other years where I think it's just a title, so I call it the fittest that year. And I call James the fittest person on earth for 2024, that year. I don't think he's proven to be dominant over all these other people like Matt, Tia, or Rich. And like you, I am absolutely less sure, because of the issues that you bring up, that James really is the fittest on earth than I have been in previous years. But he still won the test in front of him, so I still say that that title is fair, even if the test was imperfect. Now, here's the difference that I'm going to make between this and NorCal. Really, the question is, how much meddling is too much? How much meddling or issues that arise is enough to actually invalidate a result? Because it's never going to be perfect. There's always some issue. There's always imperfect programming. When does it become so much that you throw out the result or question the result? And for me, that line is fairness. So if I draw my line in the sand about making sure that we have the same test in front of us for player A as we do for player B, then of the 3 arguments I make about NorCal, 2 of them stand and 1 of them gets thrown out the window. At the games, even if 2 events were removed, they still had a fair test. I don't remember any issues like the ones we saw at NorCal that made the test different for player A versus player B. Now, the 3 issues that I named, 2 are for the men and 1 is for the women. For the women, I think that the argument Andrew brings up absolutely applies and essentially invalidates my logic because it is a programming issue. I say that Carolyn Prevost and Hattie Canio should have had time for another heavy lift in the last event and the time cap was wrong. That's a programming issue. I'm arguing that bad programming upset the result to such an effect that we might not know who should really be going to the games from NorCal. That's the same thing that Andrew said about James. Therefore, in this case, you're right to use my own logic against me. I accept that.
You were right and I was wrong.
Hattie Canio won the test in front of her. Might have been a bad time cap, but nonetheless, it was the same test in front of both of them. Even though the issues with the plates and all that existed, it didn't come into play for either of them. They were on the same course, running the same test, and Hattie won the test in front of her just like James did. But on the men's side, I made two arguments about the event itself, the final event, and about the tie break. And if all they did was change the weights, fair would be fair. If everybody knew what the weights were, there were no issues, fine. They're still on the same test, even if I think they shouldn't have lowered the weights. I know that they had to because of some equipment issues, but nonetheless, same test, all good, if that's what happened. That's not what happened. What happened was not an issue of programming, but of execution and borderline incompetence with regards to those running the event. Even if I like them, there's no other way to say it. Because of their execution and communication issues, different weights being listed in different places, competition corner versus the whiteboard versus the briefings, and people not having any idea what's going on, and because there were weights on the floor that didn't even need to be there that could have eliminated this issue altogether, Nate was confused, looked around, looked for help, received information, the wrong information. As he was trying to get his final lift in, Spencer Panchek crossed the line, and that was enough for the points to change in such a way that Nate Ackerman then lost to Jorge Fernandez, or became a tie with Jorge Fernandez. And none of us out there have said that this is Ackerman's fault. Everybody I've heard has said that the event is the one who had the issue here. Now, even though Jorge was able to run a smooth race, the reason that Ackerman was not is because of the issues of those in charge of the event. He wasn't able to get to a barbell and have the chance to make the lift in the same amount of time as Jorge because of the confusion, or in this case, the same amount of time as Spencer because of the confusion, and that affected the standings. And then my last argument was that the tie break went back to the gator push event, or the truck push, whatever you want to call it. And that, of course, is the event in which they found out that one was slower than the other, and they had to split it into halves to where you had a left side and a right side event, literally two different events. If you think about it, one side weighs more than the other and is actually more strength bias. So you actually have two different events, and they actually made two event winners. Now, here's where the big issue arises with that. Nate and Jorge were in the same lane. Should be fair, right? Who really did have the next best finish that would break the tie between Jorge and Nate? Jorge had a 0.5 on that event because you only get half a point because it's basically considered half an event. So they looked to that event in which Jorge took first out of 24 people. He beat 23 people. Nate Ackerman's best finish is second place.
You want answers! I want the truth!
Out of 40.
You can't handle the truth!
He beat 38 people. And in the end, we're going to an event where the truck was known to have slowed throughout the day, from my understanding. It wasn't just suddenly slow. It wasn't slow at the beginning of the day. It became slow. In a situation like that, where there are so many variables, maybe it slowed a little bit more between Jorge and Nate. I don't know. But at that point, the fact that you use that event to determine who goes to the games as a tiebreak after what already happened on the actual event, the last event that put us in this situation, is again an issue of fairness in execution, not one of programming. It would be like me and somebody go to stand on a scale to see who weighs more, and we find out that one of the scales isn't calibrated. By how much? We don't really know. Maybe 0.1 pound, maybe 10 pounds. I come out 190 pounds, the other person comes out 186. Who weighs more? There's really no way to know because it wasn't fair. One person might say, well, you weighed 4 pounds more than him. It was probably just a little bit off, so you still win. Somebody else might say, we have no idea how much it was off. It could have been 10 pounds off. And that's kind of like what it is with these events. We have no idea what would happen if they were uniform, if it was run properly, if there was proper communication, proper execution, and if it was fair. And it wasn't fair. And that's not the same argument that I made for James. I made an argument that James won the test in front of him, even if it was a skewed test that had thrown out two events and was mainly cardio-based, I guess. There was nothing in my argument about the execution of the events or the fairness of the events, and I cannot remember anything that happened like at NorCal that would make us question if the test that they did take was actually a fair race between James and the other people. That's a different argument. But in the case of Carolyn Prevost and Hattie Canio, Andrew Hiller was absolutely right to take my logic and flip it on its head and say, hey, this is the same thing that you said about James. Now you're being inconsistent. And I love it. I don't love it because my name got brought up and they say any press is good press. Definitely not above that. But in this case, I love it because it teaches a good lesson. When you have strong stances that you make in the public, and as you start to gain just a little bit of a following, guess what? There's a paper trail. So to Andrew Hiller, I say thank you and congratulations on being 50% correct.